Hi, and welcome to this live reading from The Taste of Treachery by Emily Bybee, and this is presented by Itsy Bitsy Book Bits. Chapter 1, U.S. Army Base somewhere in the Middle East, March 5th. Dr. Nelson gripped the handle next to his jump seat with one hand while the chopper swayed and dipped in the gusty wind like a roller coaster ride. The folders, clutched to his chest with a white-knuckled grip, flapped and fluttered in the gale-force current the helo's blades created. The soldier next to him leaned out the open door and signaled to someone on the ground. A wave of nausea swept up the doctor's throat, and he swallowed to keep from spewing bile over the metal floor. The sand particles peppering his face signaled they were close to the ground. He said a silent prayer and swore to never venture out of the United States again if he got back home safely. "Almost there, sir," the desert camo-clad soldier shouted. "Hang on." "This could ruin everything. It has to be stopped." The doctor repeated the mantra in his head and adjusted his sweaty grip on the bar. The helicopter bumped down on the landing pad with a teeth-cracking jolt. Dr. Nelson lurched to one side, his body straining against the harness. "Okay, sir, off you go," yelled the soldier over the cacophony of the blades and blowing sand while he unbuckled the harness for the panicked doctor. "Thank you," the doctor said through a dry mouth, climbed on shaking legs to the edge of the metal floor and gripped both the printouts and his bag while he floundered down the step to the sand. Another tan-clad man stood outside of the danger zone to meet him. "Where's Mr. Marling?" the doctor yelled. "He's supposed to be here to meet me." "He's on his way, sir," the soldier answered. Dr. Nelson glanced at the name on the soldier's uniform, Brooks, then studied the young man's face. He needed to remember the names, follow the data. Brooks couldn't have been older than 18 or 19. A new wave of nausea washed over him, having nothing to do with the helicopter ride. He firmed his jaw in his resolve. He'd make Marling listen and understand the danger the data showed. "Any problems around base?" he asked while they walked through the tents. "Pretty quiet lately, sir. Don't worry, we'll keep you safe," Brooks answered, misunderstanding the doctor's concern. "I'm sure you will, son," the doctor murmured. "It's imperative I speak to Mr. Marling." Chapter 2, Chicago, Illinois, March 7th. Nerves twisted my stomach into an origami crane. The gallery's owner's nimble hands flipped through my most precious possessions like they were the morning newspaper. His hands paused. "How would you describe this one?" I stopped chewing my nail and yanked my finger from my lips, then peered over his shoulder. Red and black paint splashed across the canvas. I debated on whether to include the dark painting, which deviated from my artful landscapes. It resulted from a recurring nightmare. I opened my mouth to answer, but my phone buzzed in my pocket. "Sorry," I said as I pulled it out of my pocket and glanced at the display. "Will, my brother." I hit decline. He'd pestered me for the last week. I cleared my throat, and motioned to the picture. "I painted it after an intense nightmare." He nodded and pointed to the silver blur racing off the canvas. "Someone was shot." I swallowed the lump in my throat. "My dad. He was killed in action in Afghanistan." "While your landscapes are exceptional, your emotion is vivid here. There is more visceral, piercing, if you will, reminiscent of Munch's The Scream." I flinched. That painting was the hell I'd been desperate to escape from for years. "You said you're studying at the Institute?" he asked. My phone buzzed again. I jumped and nearly dropped the damn thing. Will again. He'd been asking me to check in on his best friend Caleb, who was in the hospital recovering from surgery to remove shrapnel from his back. I hit decline again. "I'm really sorry. My brother is serving overseas." My mind battled to remember his question. The Institute, yes. Double major in computer science and art. I'm in my senior year." It took my professor 6 months and pulling a lot of strings to get me this interview with the gallery owner. Without her recommendation, I wouldn't have a chance. Getting people to take your art seriously was hard, but it was even harder when you were the size of a 12-year-old, and a short one at that, with unruly red hair. Most often, I got a pat on the shoulder and a "keep up the good work" after they glanced at the results of my blood, sweat, and literal tears. Damn, Will, he was on base, safe, not on a mission. When he was, I kept me awake nights worrying. Plus, Caleb had plenty of nurses to keep him company. Knowing him, he probably had every woman in the hospital fighting over who got to give him sponge baths. Didn't need me to check up on him. Sucked in a breath. The posh gallery even smelled artsy, a combination of fresh flowers or flower arrangements mixed with paint fumes. Those white walls launched more art careers than anywhere else in Chicago. A showing here was my dream when I wasn't having nightmares about Dad getting shot by insurgents. Do you have any more along these lines on the darker side? The gallery owner asked. Tender butterfly wings of hope unfurled in my chest. Yes, I have several, I blurted out. Several more than I cared to admit. Kept the ever-increasing stack of nightmare paintings stuffed away out of sight. Blood, guts, and gore weren't my favorite subjects. I liked to focus on the beauty in the world. My hands trembled at the thought of getting the intense images out and putting them up for everyone to see, but this was what I'd waited for, what I'd been working so hard for all these years, this chance. The phone buzzed again, and I suppressed the urge to throw it against the wall. Either silence the phone or take the call, the owner said, his gaze darting to my face. His tone made it obvious which he expected. People didn't make him wait. My finger hovered over the power button, but the tightening in my chest wouldn't let me push it. What if it's something important? I swallowed and prepared to end my art career before it even began. I'm so sorry. This will just take a second, I said. His eyes widened while his mouth tightened. If you want to look through the rest, I'll be right back, I said in a cheerleader-esque voice, while I smiled so widely my lips practically split. Probably looked like a demented clown. I turned and jogged around a corner, not what that mattered since the walls didn't even go up to the ceiling. This better be important, I glared at the phone. My finger tapped the green button. I have better things to do than babysit Caleb, I hissed. Harper! The tone of Will's voice stopped the rest of the tirade about to jump off my tongue. Harper, I'm in trouble. Anger transformed to fear in a second flat. What do you mean? What happened? Will's heavy breath muffled the sound of his words. I was trying to get their picture. They know it's me. You're not safe. Will, you're not making sense. I squeezed the phone. The blood in my veins hardened into cement, unmovable. Pain spread through my ribs, around my straining heart. Voices sounded in the background. The clamor grew louder, closer. I yelled into the phone. Will? Will? A crash blared over the line, more voices right on top of him. The shouts hurt my ears. Will screamed like I'd never heard before, a scream of pain. The line went dead, cutting off his cries. I gripped a table to stay upright. The sounds of the city faded. My vision fell away, leaving a pinpoint of white. No tears sprang to my eyes, no sobs from my lips. My hand holding the phone dropped from my face as though my muscles were paralyzed. Nothing existed, nothing except the infinite expanse of pain erupting from my chest. My fingers tightened on the table to keep the weight of my fear from dropping me to the floor. One thought trickled through my overloaded neurons. Not again. Images crept back into my vision. Flowers, paintings, walls. The pinched face of the owner appeared around the corner of the partial wall, his irritation somewhat overshadowed by concern. Are you finished? I have to go, I gasped, letting out a stagnant breath, then pocketed the phone and started for the door. His voice stopped me. What about your portfolio? I might want to see more of your work. I sped back to the table, stuffed the canvases into the leather portfolio, and then ripped the zipper shut, holding myself together by a shoestring. I'm sorry, but I'll have to get back to you. His slight drop-mouthed expression would have been comical under different circumstances. I rushed past him and out the door before he recovered enough to talk. Goodbye, art career.